The night was quiet over the small colony of Luma 9. Children slept in glass-roofed houses under soft artificial stars. Parents whispered bedtime stories about Earth and blue oceans. No one knew that death was already falling from the sky. A shadow appeared above the colony, a massive Imperial warship. Its surface shone like a blade cutting through the darkness. Without a word, it opened fire. Energy beams tore through buildings, schools, and streets. The ground shook as fire rolled across the fields. Children screamed, mothers ran, alarms cried across the sky. But there was no escape. In minutes, everything turned to ash. The attackers did not even ask for surrender. They came to erase, to teach fear. Their orders were simple: destroy the human settlement, leave nothing behind. And when the last cry faded, the commander smiled coldly. He said, "Now they will remember their place in the galaxy." The warship vanished into the void, leaving smoke and silence behind. A single signal beacon blinked weakly from the ruins. It was damaged, half-broken, sending fragments of sound. Static, a child's voice, then static again. "Please, help us. Fire everywhere. They're burning." Then nothing. Only silence. That small signal traveled through the stars for 2 hours before reaching Earth. When the message played in Terran command, no one spoke. The room filled with the sound of the child's voice. Officers lowered their heads. Others clenched their fists. One general whispered, "They killed children." Another replied, "No. They declared war." But the commander-in-chief said nothing. He just walked to the window and looked at the blue planet below. For the first time in a century, Earth was quiet. There were no speeches, no broadcasts, no loud threats. Only the sound of engines being prepared in secret bases. Factories came alive. Refineries glowed red through the night. Old shipyards reopened, building machines long thought forgotten. Humanity did not cry for long. They began to prepare across the colonies. The same silence spread. Families who lost children sent letters to enlist. Scientists worked without rest. The media tried to ask questions, but the government gave only one answer: stand by. The Galactic Empire thought humans would mourn. They thought the tears would weaken them. But something older than fear was waking. A rage buried deep in human hearts. The kind of rage that builds not from hate, but from love. Love for what was taken. Love for what must be avenged. In an underground hangar beneath the Andes Mountains, rows of ancient warships stood silent. They were relics from old wars, massive, rusted, forgotten. Now engineers moved between them, lighting them up one by one. Engines roared, hulls shook, lights flickered to life. The Iron Fleet was waking, and with it, humanity's promise, never again. Admiral Ryan, the man who once commanded Earth's final defense fleet, walked slowly through the hangar. He looked at the revived ships, his eyes cold. A young officer asked, "Sir, is this really happening?" Ryan answered, "They killed our future, now we will show them what humanity truly is." He turned toward the command platform and gave the order. "Signal every colony, every station, every ship capable of flight. Tell them, the Iron Hand has returned." A signal spread through space. Across Mars, Titan, Europa, and the far moons of Neptune, old satellites came online, fleets realigned. Every pilot who ever wore Earth's badge looked to the stars again. It was not just about revenge anymore. It was about proving that humanity could not be broken. The Empire did not know. They celebrated their victory, believing the humans too weak to respond. In their golden halls, they toasted the destruction of Luma 9. One senator asked quietly, "What if they strike back?" The general laughed. "Humans are emotional, not dangerous." But deep in the galaxy's cold space, ships were gathering, engines silent, weapons ready. Each one carried a symbol burned into the hull, a child's handprint. Back on Earth, the commander stood before a massive holographic map. Stars glowed red where the Empire's worlds lay. He placed his hand on the glass and whispered, "For every child lost, a world will remember." He turned to his officers and said calmly, "Begin Operation Iron Hand." Engines across the solar system roared to life. The silence was broken. Humanity was no longer waiting. The galaxy would soon learn a truth it had forgotten. When you kill human children, you do not face justice, you face humanity, and humanity was coming. The silence that began with sorrow was now turning into thunder. Across the solar system, every human world felt the change in the air. No one spoke about peace anymore, only about justice. The word revenge was never printed, but everyone whispered it. Earth's sky was filled with light from factories working through endless nights. The oceans reflected the glow of ships rising into orbit. Every launch was a promise, every engine roar a vow. Admiral Ryan stood aboard the command ship Vigilant Dawn, the largest Terran dreadnought ever built. Its hull was black, engraved with the names of the Luma 9 children. He looked at those names every morning before giving orders. Around him, hundreds of officers worked silently. No one smiled, no one joked. Their hearts carried one purpose, one mission: make the galaxy remember. Messages came from the colonies. Mars pledged its fleet. Luna sent its engineers, Titan its war drones. Even the small mining stations offered their cargo haulers for conversion into warships. It was as if the entire species had become one living force. A billion hands building, a billion minds planning. No leader needed to ask for unity. Grief had already united them. The Galactic Empire watched all this with amusement. Their spies sent reports, calling it human drama. They laughed in their crystal towers. One admiral said, "They are building toys to fight gods." But deep down, a few began to feel uneasy. They had seen what humans could do when cornered. They remembered old stories and the wars of Earth, the fire of survival. Still, the Emperor ignored them, believing humans were too emotional, too slow. Meanwhile, in the hidden shipyards beneath Europa's ice, a secret weapon was being completed. It was not a planet killer, not a super laser. It was something far worse. It was a fleet born to move unseen. Engines that made no sound, armor that absorbed light, designed to strike and vanish before the enemy could breathe. They called it the Phantom Wing, and only a handful of humans knew it existed. On board the Vigilant Dawn, the crew trained day and night. They learned new formations, new silent codes. The voice of Admiral Ryan echoed through every corridor. "Do not think of revenge, think of duty," he said. "When the time comes, we strike not for hate, but for the ones who cannot strike back." Those words spread across the fleet like fire through dry fields. Every soldier repeated them before sleep. Every pilot etched them on their ship's panel. The galaxy was slowly beginning to sense the storm. Trading ships went missing near Terran borders. Imperial patrols found abandoned outposts, empty, silent yet full of strange energy readings. Whispers spread through the Empire. "Humans are moving," someone said. "They are coming," another whispered. But no one knew when or where. The darkness of space began to feel colder, heavier, like something alive was watching from beyond the stars, back on Earth. The Commander-in-Chief met with the Council of Colonies. Maps of the Empire floated above them, filled with red markers. Each marker was a target connected to the Luma 9 attack chain. The commander pointed to the map and said, "They took our children. Now we take their certainty." He turned to Admiral Ryan. "Choose your first move." Ryan replied calmly. "We begin where they least expect us, their heart." The first wave of Terran ships departed silently, their engines dim, their signals masked. Even nearby stations couldn't detect them. They vanished into the blackness like ghosts behind them. Earth remained glowing with factories and silent prayers. Parents stood on rooftops watching the lights fade into the sky. Some cried, some smiled. They knew their loved ones were not going to war for glory. They were going to remind the galaxy what it meant to harm humans. Days turned into weeks. The Empire continued to ignore the signs until one morning. The Imperial Border Command received a strange report. A patrol fleet of 30 ships had disappeared without a trace. No wreckage, no distress signal, nothing. The report reached the Emperor, but he dismissed it. "Another malfunction," he said coldly. He did not know that this was only the beginning. In the darkness between stars, the Terran fleet gathered. Thousands of ships floating in silence, their lights off, their weapons charged. Every pilot waited for one signal, a single word from Earth. That word came in the calm voice of the commander. It was not loud, not angry. It was simple, but it carried the weight of 1,000 dead children. The word was begin, and so the storm began to move. Not with noise, but with silence, not with speeches, but with vengeance. Humanity had risen from grief to purpose, and the galaxy had no idea that the hunters had become the hunted. The gathering storm was here, and soon, the Empire would understand what it had awakened. In the heart of the Galactic Empire, the golden capital world of Voral burned bright under twin suns. Massive towers touched the clouds, streets shimmered with light, and banners of victory waved proudly. To the citizens of the Empire, humans were nothing, small, loud, and fragile. They believed Earth was just another world that needed to learn its place. But far beyond their shining cities in the cold darkness of space, their fleets were already vanishing. The Emperor sat upon his throne of crystal and gold, surrounded by his council. Reports flickered on holoscreens. Missing ships, unresponsive patrols, vanished convoys. One advisor spoke carefully. "Your Majesty, the human attacks grow bolder." The Emperor smiled. "Attacks? No accidents." He lifted a jeweled cup and said, "Humans are emotional creatures. They cannot organize such precision." Laughter filled the room, but it sounded hollow because deep down, some of them had begun to fear the truth. Admiral Kale, one of the oldest military minds in the Empire, stepped forward. He spoke softly. "Your Majesty, I have studied their wars, their history. They do not strike without cause, but when they do, they strike to end, not to warn." The Emperor frowned. "You think they can challenge us?" Kale replied, "No, I think they already are." Silence filled the chamber, until the Emperor waved his hand, dismissing him like a child. "Humans are like sparks in the wind," he said. "Annoying but brief." The council laughed again, but the laughter could not hide their unease. Across the Empire, fear began to whisper in corridors. Pilots spoke of ships that appeared out of nowhere, destroyed entire squadrons, and vanished without trace. Supply routes went dark. Planets reported strange signals echoing through space. They called it the Phantom War. No one saw their enemy, but everyone felt their presence. The name human was now spoken like a curse. Children asked their parents, "Are humans real?" And the parents whispered, "Yes, and they are angry." In the great academies of the Empire, cadets studied human behavior. They tried to understand what made them so dangerous. One professor said, "Humans do not fight for conquest. They fight for meaning," another added. "They believe revenge is not evil. It is justice." But before these words could spread, the Empire silenced them. They wanted to keep control. They wanted to believe they still ruled the galaxy. Meanwhile, in the outer sectors, Imperial fleets searched the empty stars. They fired missiles into the void, hoping to hit invisible ghosts, but they found nothing. Every time they thought they cornered the humans, they were already gone. They left behind wreckage marked with a single symbol, a small child's handprint painted in white. To the Empire, it was madness. To humanity, it was a message, a reminder of Luma 9, a reminder of why this war had begun. Admiral Kale requested an emergency meeting with the Emperor again. He arrived with holo footage from the border sectors. The screens showed Imperial cruisers destroyed with surgical precision. Not chaotic explosions, but clean hits, perfect strikes. Kale's voice shook. "They are not reacting anymore. They are hunting us," the Emperor glared. "Then hunt them back." Kale's reply was quiet. "You cannot hunt a shadow, Majesty." The Emperor rose from his throne. Fury burning in his eyes, he shouted, "Deploy the Grand Armada! Show these savages what Empire means." Orders echoed through the halls. Across the galaxy, thousands of warships were sent toward human borders. Their engines burned bright, their weapons ready. They thought they were unstoppable. They thought humans would tremble before them. But the humans were already waiting, at the edge of a dying star. The Terran fleet lay hidden inside the nebula's red clouds. Every sensor silent, every ship cold and dark. Admiral Ryan stood before his crew, calm as the void. "They are coming," he said. "Remember Luma 9. Remember why we fight." The fleet's engines roared to life in perfect silence. Weapons charged, shields flickered. The storm was about to break open. Back in the Imperial Palace, the Emperor watched his ships move on the map. Thousands of blue lights spreading like a wave toward the Terran sector. He smiled. Now humanity will learn fear. But far away, those same blue lights began to blink out one by one. First 20 ships, then 50, then 100. Vanishing without warning. No signals, no distress calls. Just darkness. An aide screamed, "Your Majesty, they're gone!" The entire vanguard has vanished. The Emperor stared at the map. The blue lights were gone, replaced by red. Terran ships. Hundreds of them, he whispered in disbelief. Impossible. And at that moment, the Empire understood. Humanity was not fighting for power. They were fighting for memory, for love, for vengeance. And nothing in the galaxy could stand against that. The Emperor clenched his fists and shouted, "Who are they?" Admiral Kale answered quietly, "They are the storm you mocked." "Majesty." The Emperor turned pale, his voice shaking. Then may the gods help us, but even the gods stayed silent because humanity was already there. And the age of arrogance was ending, space was empty, dark, and cold. But somewhere in that darkness a new kind of silence was moving. It was not the silence of peace, but of preparation, the silence before a storm, the breath before vengeance. The Terran fleet waited beyond the edge of known space, thousands of ships drifting like ghosts through the shadows, their hulls black as night, absorbing all light, their engines modified to burn without a sound. No transmissions, no signals, nothing to trace. They were invisible to every Imperial sensor. A fleet of shadows, humanity's answer to arrogance. Admiral Ryan stood on the bridge of vigilant dawn. Staring into the starless void, his crew waited for his command. Not speaking, not breathing, he looked calm. But inside him burned the memory of Luma 9. The screams of the children, the fire that took everything. He raised his hand and whispered, "Execute Phase 1. Across the fleet. Silent lights blinked once, engines came alive without sound. Warheads armed, drones deployed, stealth armor activated. The first wave of the silent fleet began to move. Their targets were deep inside Imperial territory. Outposts that monitored trade routes and border passages. Each one heavily guarded, each one confident. The Empire never imagined humans could reach that far. But they forgot what desperation can build. They forgot that grief creates monsters even gods should fear. In the darkness near the first outpost, time seemed to stop. The Imperial crew went about their usual work. Drinking, laughing, scanning empty sectors, then one of them looked at the radar and frowned. "Something's wrong," he said. "The stars. They're moving." Before he could speak again, the stars exploded. Dozens of human ships uncloaked in perfect formation. Lasers cut through the station like light through glass. The entire outpost vanished before a single alarm could sound. No survivors, no transmissions, only silence left behind. Hours later, another outpost disappeared, then another and another. The pattern was too clean, too fast, too precise. It was not war, it was extermination. And yet humans did not touch civilians. They spared transport ships, hospitals, refugee colonies. The message was clear. This was not random destruction. This was justice. Admiral Ryan's second officer, a quiet woman named Mara, watched the feed. Her hands trembled slightly. "Sir, should we send a warning?" Ryan shook his head. No warnings, no words. Only results. He turned to the main display, where the next Imperial fleet appeared as glowing dots. He said quietly, "Let them wonder who we are." Meanwhile, the Empire panicked. They sent hundreds of ships to investigate, but every fleet that entered the dark zones vanished. Their last recorded message was always the same. Static, a faint heartbeat sound, then silence. They called it the echo of Earth. Even the bravest captains began to refuse orders to enter human space. Fear spread faster than light. In the Imperial court, the Emperor raged. "How can we fight what we cannot see?" He screamed. Admiral Kale answered softly, "You cannot fight the dark when you are the light." The Emperor slammed his fist. "Then we will make them come to us. We will attack Earth directly." But Kale shook his head. "You will not find Earth, Majesty. They have erased their coordinates from the galactic network. Even the stars hide for them now." Back aboard Vigilant Dawn, Ryan stared at the image of the Imperial Palace displayed on his console. He whispered, "Not yet. They could strike the capital easily." But that was not the plan. Humanity was teaching the Empire a lesson they would never forget. Fear before fire, silence before death. Every world they touched would feel the dread before the strike. Weeks passed and the galaxy began to whisper a new legend. They called it the Black Armada, the fleet that made no sound, that killed without warning. Merchants spoke of ghost ships that appeared beside them, not to attack but to watch, eyes glowing red from the dark before vanishing again. Even the Empire's allies began to question their loyalty. No one wanted to be the next to disappear. In hidden transmission channels, alien nations sent secret messages to Earth. Some begged for peace, some offered alliances, but the humans gave no answer. They were not seeking allies or mercy. They were seeking balance. Admiral Ryan finally looked at his officers and said, "The galaxy must remember this day." He pointed to the map of Imperial worlds, glowing in blood red. "Today we strike at their heart." Every soldier in the room stood in silence. They knew what it meant. This was the moment the silent fleet would reveal itself. Thousands of engines ignited together. For the first time in weeks, the silence broke. But it did not break with sound when it broke with purpose. The Terran fleet moved forward, cutting through the void like a blade, and somewhere in the galaxy, the Emperor looked up at the night sky. He thought he saw shooting stars, but they were not stars. They were the humans he had mocked, and they were coming. The stars burned red over the imperial world of Draven Prime. It was a shining jewel of the Empire, full of cities, factories, and pride. No one there believed the humans would ever reach this far. No one believed the stories of ghost fleets and silent ships. They thought those were lies told by cowards, until the day the sky itself began to scream. It started with a strange hum, low and deep. Windows cracked, lights flickered, comms died. Then the clouds split apart. Dozens of massive shapes appeared above the atmosphere. Dark as shadow, silent as death, the humans had arrived. Panic spread through the city like wildfire. Sirens wailed, soldiers ran. The Emperor's banners fluttered in the storm. Every anti-air gun turned upward, but the sky gave them nothing to target. The Terran fleet remained cloaked, invisible, waiting, then without warning. Beams of pure energy rained down, each one precise, controlled, and deliberate. They did not hit homes, hospitals, or schools. They struck only the military compounds, command towers, and weapon silos. The ground shook. Buildings of steel crumbled like sand. Flames lit the horizon, painting the sky red. The Imperial governor screamed into a dead comm line, "Where is our fleet?" Why is no one responding? But no answer came because the fleets were gone. Lost in the black void the humans had already conquered in orbit. Admiral Ryan watched silently from the bridge of vigilant dawn. His officers looked uneasy, some pale with shock. He spoke softly. "Target sectors cleared, civilians untouched," a voice replied. "Confirmed, sir." He nodded. "Proceed to broadcast." Every screen, every projection, every device across Draven Prime flickered to life. A single human symbol appeared, the flag of Earth. Then a calm voice spoke in Galactic Common. "This is not an invasion. This is remembrance." The voice paused, letting the words sink in. "For the children of Luma 9, it said. The entire planet froze, listening, and then, as quickly as it began, the message ended. The screens went dark again, leaving only silence and smoke. Down below, people came out of their shelters. They saw human drones dropping supplies and medical kits for civilians. No soldiers, no occupation, just help. The humans had burned their army, destroyed their pride, but spared their people to the Empire. It was humiliation beyond words to the galaxy. It was a message written in fire. The Emperor watched from his palace as the reports came in. Draven Prime, destroyed, the fleet, missing. The humans, unstoppable, his advisors begged him to call for peace. But his pride was stronger than his fear. He roared, "They dare to humiliate the Empire? They dare to show mercy?" His voice echoed through the golden halls. "Then I will burn Earth myself," he shouted. But even as he spoke, another message arrived. It was a recording from a surviving probe near Draven Prime. It showed the human flagship, its hull engraved with thousands of names. The Emperor froze as he read the inscription on the ship's side. "For the lost children," it said. He felt something heavy in his chest, a feeling he didn't recognize, guilt. Back in the Terran command chamber, Admiral Ryan stood before his officers. He said quietly, "We showed them strength, now we show them control." One young pilot asked, "Sir, why did we spare the civilians?" Ryan turned to him and replied, "Because we are not them." Those words spread through the fleet like light in the dark. Every soldier repeated it. Every pilot carried it in their heart. Because this war was no longer about victory. It was about identity. It was about proving that even in rage, humanity still had a soul. The galaxy watched in silence. Alien nations that once mocked Earth now sent envoys offering peace and friendship. Some even asked for protection. They saw that humans were dangerous, yes, but also fair. They punished the guilty but protected the innocent. They did not destroy for pleasure. They destroyed for balance. The Day of Ashes became a legend. The day the Empire's heart was broken. The day humans reminded the stars that mercy and wrath can exist together. Songs were written, stories told, and far across the galaxy, mothers whispered to their children, "Do not anger the humans. They carry both fire and forgiveness." As the Terran fleet pulled away from Draven Prime, the last thing seen from orbit was a symbol burned into the surface of the planet. It was not a flag, not a warning. It was a child's handprint glowing in white fire. The same mark left on every world that had once cheered the Empire's cruelty. It was humanity's silent promise, and never again. And as vigilant dawn disappeared into the dark, Ryan whispered to himself, "One world has paid. Many remain." The next target blinked on the map. The war was far from over, but now the galaxy was watching. And the Emperor had begun to understand. He had not just provoked a species. He had awakened something greater. He had awakened the other side of humanity. The throne room of the Galactic Empire was no longer filled with laughter. It was filled with silence. The golden walls that once echoed with pride now trembled with fear. Every servant, every guard, every minister moved quietly. No one dared to speak the word humans because that word had become a curse. The Emperor sat alone, eyes fixed on the holographic map of the galaxy. Red marks spread across it. Worlds lost, fleets destroyed, stations gone. Each red mark represented a human strike. Each one precise, merciless, and silent. He had sent hundreds of ships, but none returned. He had ordered new fleets built, but even shipyards were burning. It was as if the humans were always one step ahead. Every plan he made, they already knew. Admiral Kale stood before the Emperor, his uniform torn and burned. He had barely escaped a battle that lasted minutes. "They are everywhere, Majesty," he said softly. "They appear out of nothing, strike without warning, then vanish." The Emperor's voice shook. "How can a primitive world do this?" Kale looked at him. "They were primitive once, Majesty, but pain changes everything." The Emperor rose from his throne, his golden robe dragging across the floor. He shouted, "We are the Empire. We rule 1,000 worlds." Kale did not reply. He simply said, "Then why are those worlds burning?" The Emperor's hand trembled, his voice broke. Enough. But his heart knew. This war was already lost. Outside, the galaxy was changing. Allied races began to withdraw from the Empire. Trade routes closed, alliances shattered. The name Terran became a shadow that made even the strongest tremble. Merchants refused to carry Imperial goods. Entire sectors went dark, afraid to be seen helping the Empire. The fear was spreading faster than the fire. On one ruined world, an Imperial governor stood amid ashes. The human fleet had passed over his planet. They destroyed the army but spared the people. The governor looked at the sky and whispered, "They could have killed us all, but they didn't." For the first time, an Imperial leader felt shame back on Earth. Admiral Ryan stood in the war chamber. Holograms of destroyed Imperial worlds glowed around him. His officers awaited orders, but he remained silent. He looked at the images of human soldiers helping alien refugees. He spoke softly. "We are not monsters, but they made us remember how to become one." Then he turned. "Begin the next phase. Strike at the throne." The human fleet moved like a storm through the void, invisible, unstoppable, united. Every captain carried the same phrase carved into their ship. For the lost children. They no longer needed orders, they knew what must be done. It was not hatred that guided them now. It was duty. In the Imperial Palace, alarms screamed. The guards ran through the corridors, shouting commands. An officer burst into the throne room. "Majesty, unknown ships have breached the outer perimeter." The Emperor rose in panic. "Where is our defense fleet?" "They are gone," the officer whispered. "Every last one." The Emperor's crown slipped from his head and fell to the floor with a hollow sound. He could not breathe for the first time in his life. He felt small outside the palace. The sky turned black. Dozens of Terran ships descended, their hulls glowing red in the sunlight. No gunfire, no missiles, no noise. Only the sound of engines humming like thunder before a storm. Civilians watched in silence, some even knelt, not in fear, but in awe. Because the humans did not come to conquer. They came to end. Admiral Ryan appeared on every Imperial broadcast channel. His calm face filled the screens across the galaxy. "This is not a war," he said. "This is balance." He looked straight into the camera, his voice steady. "The Empire killed our children. Now humanity answers," he paused, then said something that silenced the stars. "We will not destroy you, but we will take away your power to harm again." The Emperor watched the broadcast in disbelief. Tears welled in his eyes. "They could destroy us," he whispered. Kale nodded. "Yes, Majesty." "Then why don't they?" the Emperor asked, voice trembling. Kale looked at him. "Because they are human." Outside, the Terran ships deployed drones that dismantled the Empire's weapons and shields. They erased every war system, every planetary cannon, every fleet database. They did not kill, they disarmed. They ended the war not with destruction, but with control. The Emperor fell to his knees. He whispered, "What are they?" Kale answered, "The other side of mercy." When the humans finally left orbit, they left no fire, no ruin, no gloating, only silence. But the galaxy could feel it. The Empire was broken, not by rage, but by justice. The Emperor looked up at the empty sky and said, "Forgive me, children of Earth." His voice cracked as he whispered, "I should have never made you remember who you are." The war was over. The great Galactic Empire, once shining like a sun across 1,000 worlds, now stood in silence, its banners torn, its fleets gone, its pride turned to dust. The stars that once obeyed the Emperor now whispered a different name: Earth. In the ruins of the Imperial Palace, the throne lay empty. Golden halls echoed with the soft footsteps of survivors. No Terran soldiers guarded them, no chains bound them. The humans had left. They came like shadows, they struck like storms. And then they vanished. No demands, no occupation, no trophies. Only one message carved into the marble walls: remember the children. Admiral Ryan stood aboard the flagship Vigilant Dawn, watching the fading image of the palace on the holoscreen. His crew waited quietly, unsure whether to feel victory or sorrow. He spoke slowly, his voice heavy with both. "It's done," he said, "but it doesn't feel like triumph, Mara." His officer looked at him, her eyes tired. "It never does, sir," she whispered. "War never feels like winning, only surviving." Across the fleet, soldiers removed their helmets and looked toward the stars. Some cried, some smiled, others just sat in silence, holding small photographs of families long gone. They had avenged the dead, yet their hearts were still heavy. Because vengeance cannot bring back laughter. It can only bring peace on Earth. The world watched as the fleets returned. Cities filled with cheers, but also with tears. Mothers embraced the sons who came home. Fathers saluted the ones who didn't. The children who survived Luma 9 were now grown. They stood in front of the great memorial and placed flowers beneath a metal plaque. The plaque read, "They took our future. We gave them our humanity." The Galactic Council, made up of frightened remnants of the old empire, sent a message to Earth. They begged for peace. They asked for forgiveness. The humans replied not with threats, but with guidance. Earth offered them food, medicine, and rebuilding technology. The same hands that destroyed now began to heal. The same hearts that burned with rage now glowed with compassion. The galaxy saw it, and for the first time, they understood what humans truly were. Because humans are not only warriors. They are dreamers, builders, and protectors. They fight fiercely, but they love fiercely too. And when they rise in anger, it is because something innocent was lost. Something sacred was broken. That was the other side of humanity. The side that cries before it fights. The side that saves even its enemies when the battle is done. Years passed and the scars of war began to fade. Imperial worlds rebuilt under Terran guidance. Children of every race studied in schools where Earth history was taught with respect. They learned about kindness born from pain. About strength born from loss. They learned that mercy is not weakness, but the highest form of power. One day the Emperor, now an old man in exile, received a small package. Inside it was a single toy, a tiny carved figure of a child holding a flower. Attached was a message written in Terran script. It said, "We forgave you the moment you feared yourself." Tears fell from his eyes as he whispered, "They were never monsters. They were mirrors." In the halls of Terran Command, Admiral Ryan finally removed his uniform. He walked to the memorial garden where a statue stood under the stars. The statue showed a child reaching toward the sky. At the base were the words, "For those who reminded us who we are." Ryan placed his hand on the cold stone and said softly, "We showed them the other side. Now may they never see it again." The Terran fleets were dismantled. The warships turned into explorers. Engines once used for destruction now carried hope to the farthest corners of the galaxy. Wherever a human ship arrived, it brought aid, music, and light. And wherever the flag of Earth was seen, it no longer meant fear. It meant safety and time. The legend of humanity spread beyond the known stars. Stories told of a species that burned worlds in grief but rebuilt them in love. A people who could rage like fire but heal like rain. They called them the children of two hearts, one of steel, one of mercy. Generations later, Travelers would find a quiet monument floating between stars. It was shaped like a child's handprint glowing softly in the dark. No names, no dates, only an inscription. To those who hurt us, we forgave. To those who loved us, we remembered. And somewhere beyond that monument, in the endless silence of space, a human voice whispered through the stars, "Never test the kindness of humanity, for within it sleeps the storm." The galaxy listened and never forgot.